Hi, and welcome to Somatic Wise, where we talk about somatic psychotherapy, eco-psychology, and how people and nature can heal each other. This video is called A Practical Guide to Stress Physiology, and it's one I've been meaning to record for a while now. I figure that these times that we're in right now in the COVID-19 world pandemic, this would be a good time to offer this video as a beginning guide to human stress physiology. What's going on in my inner world? Why do I feel like this? How might I be able to tell if I could be stuck in stress physiology? And what do people generally do to get themselves unstuck from an unpleasant internal state like this? Now, right now, I'm recording this from Somatic Wise headquarters. We're all in self-imposed quarantine here to prevent the spread of the virus. These are fairly uncertain times. Things that might have felt fairly certain before might not be feeling as certain. And so there's the outside situation that's going on. And then there's also our inner response to this pandemic or really anything that's happening in our lives. So the focus of this video is what's happening with our inner response. And again, what might it feel like if I'm in a fight, flight, freeze response, and what can be done about it? It's like a good time to remind everybody that, like all of my videos, this video is intended to offer general education to the public. This is a starting place. It's meant for public education, especially for folks who might not have been aware of these issues. This is not medical advice. This is not psychotherapeutic advice for any individual or group of individuals watching this. I'm not telling you what to do. If you think some of this may apply to you, then it's really important to seek your own consultation with a somatic practitioner or somebody who's a professional in self-regulation. Read up, do your own research. This is not individual advice.
Now, she said you can't take this for your own treatment advice. Got it?
Okay, I got it. I promise I won't. So let's talk about what exactly are fight, flight, and freeze. Most people have heard of those. This comes from Dr. Stephen Porges, who has made something that he calls Polyvagal Theory. I'll put some links about all this in the description below. According to Dr. Porges, we can basically conceive of our functioning as being in four states or four gears. And unlike the gears in a car, these kind of blend together. There's social engagement where we're pretty relaxed and we've got some good life energy, but we're not freaking out. And then we'll talk some more about that later. Fight and flight is when our bodies are starting to mobilize. We've detected a threat, and this involves our whole body. It's an involuntary state. The body detects a threat and it mobilizes to deal with it. This involves our heart, our lungs, our nervous system, our muscles, the chemistry running through our body, our stress hormones, everything. And it involves our thinking and our judgment. Everything we are, everything we do or be, that's all involved in the stress response. Our body literally wants to fight or run away. Obviously, that's not always relevant in modern day society, which is where some of the problem comes in. And freeze is a very similar state. It's a higher state of stress physiology. That means there's more stress on board, more of what we call activation, which is traffic in the fight and flight nervous system. Freeze is when the threat seems so overwhelming that we stop moving. We basically immobilize. We kind of hunker down and prepare for the threat, or we wait for the threat to go away, basically. And we numb out in case it doesn't go away. We can't feel it so much. These are all involuntary. They come from the deep centers of our brain, the center of our brain, and then back here, our reptile brain. It's not something we're doing on purpose. It happens very quickly. It happens oftentimes under the level of our conscious awareness, and they can get stuck. So these states of our physiology, of our thinking, of everything our body and mind and heart and soul are doing can stick around longer than the actual threat. And so one of the things we always want to ask ourselves is, are these, whatever our body is doing, is it situationally appropriate or is it getting in our way in some way? Now, one thing that is important to consider from a layperson, non-medical person perspective, but the body uses a ton of energy, so much life energy in these threat response states. It's like an analogy I always give to my clients. Let's say you hit the jackpot and you bought your favorite sports car ever, right? I don't know if it's a Porsche or not a Tesla. I don't think this works with a Tesla, but let's say you bought your favorite sports car, it's in the garage, and you're revving it all the time. Well, how long is your engine going to last if you don't lay off the gas pedal? Well, that's kind of what happens to our body if we're stuck in a fight or flight or actually a freeze state. It's a lot of wear and tear on our body that's maybe not good for us. And what we somatic practitioners often see in practice is that when a person's just been accidentally stuck in these sort of responses and draining themselves, it can be really hard on our physiology and particularly our immune system because the energy is going to fight and flight. There's not as much to digest our food or repair our muscle tears or soften our inflammation states or things like that. So this is why I think it's really important to get this information out there so that people can realize what's going on and start to do their own research and figure out how they can take care of their own health and their own selves. Okay, then, so how might we be able to tell if our physiology is stuck in a fight, flight, or freeze response? Let's look at some general signs first that we might be stuck in a flight response. Flight response tends to go with fear, so the predominant emotion would be likely to be anxiety, racing thoughts, braced muscles, maybe the heart rate's up, jaw clenched, kind of biting back on the fear, maybe lump in the throat. Respiration can be, or more commonly, it can get stuck kind of in the upper part of the chest, or one might find themselves not breathing very much. Blood pressure raised. The muscles tend to have a lot of energy in them, a lot of jiggling, tremoring. Again, they're ready to go. They're ready to just take off and exit stage right. Get out of here, right? That's what the body wants to do. Of course, this isn't a good response if you get something from the IRS in the mail. This is another example of how modern day circumstances do not always correspond with fight or flight wiring that's older than that. But let's see, temperatures can change. Again, thoughts can be very rapid, racing. It's just generally very uncomfortable. People don't tend to be very hungry in a fight response because their body's planning to mobilize. It doesn't want to be using a bunch of energy for digestion. These are some general examples of how our bodies can talk to us and tell us that things are very scary and we want to run away and get out of here. The decision about whether the body is going to be in a fight response, a flight response, or a freeze response is not voluntary. It's made somewhere in the deep middle of our brain, and the body makes it for us according to what it thinks is going to be the best chance of survival. So let's talk about some general experiences that people have if they're stuck in a fight response. Not surprisingly, fight response goes with anger. So people can feel hot, they can feel their jaw clenching, brow furrowing, vision narrowing in towards the threat. Just sort of a fierce feeling. There might be more pressure, energy in the face, shoulders, muscles braced, a lot of energy in the upper body, and generally this is our fight hardware, and the legs are flight hardware. There's obviously exceptions to that. Many people stuck in a fight response feel a burning in their chest or have images of lava. Fight response is a tricky one because if it gets past the person's ability to contain it, then they have the danger of acting out violently. It's really important for anybody who is starting to lose control over their fight response to get help in containing it, to go to a safe place, ask for assistance at the ER or with a trusted person somehow so that you don't act out. That's really important because when this takes over, it can really take over, and these states are only partly voluntary. Anyway, these sensations can generally indicate if somebody can be stuck in a fight response. Somebody's stuck in a freeze response, that means that our unconscious threat detection physiology has determined that whatever's going on is bigger than us. It's not out of control. It's really overwhelming, and our personal resources are not enough to deal with it. So the body goes immobile, doesn't move. A lot of the times there's numbing and immobility. Immobility being, I'm just going to hunker down and get really still and wait until the problem goes away. And in case it doesn't go away, I'm going to numb myself out so I don't feel very much of it. This often goes with depressive feelings or feelings of doom, overwhelming doom. It's a very frequent contributor to depressive states. It's really unpleasant. Sometimes people can feel doom and horror, sometimes they can feel numb. It can be very hard to mobilize. A lot of people with this stuck in their habitual physiology just have difficulties with motivation. There can be brain fog, not really clear thinking, slow thinking, just, oh, I know I need to get up and do this, but I'm just not going to do it. And a lot of people blame themselves for this or are blamed by other people, but again, these are largely involuntary states more than maybe we think. That's informing the way that we're able to act in the world. The reasons that it's really important for every individual to do their own research, speak with their own practitioners, and come to their own conclusions about themselves is because these responses vary a lot from nervous system to nervous system. Generally, the more early trauma a person has had, whether or not they think it was traumatic, if their body thought it was traumatic and it happened earlier in their life, that can lead to more of a tendency to get stuck. It can also make it a lot more difficult for the person's nervous system to organize and mobilize and get out or unstuck from these states. So again, it's really important to not take anything I'm saying as treatment advice. Andrea said that this was going on in my nervous system. This is a starting point, and I'm going to link a lot of really wonderful and helpful resources in the discussion below. We're going to talk about some things that are often generally helpful to people in unsticking our physiology from the stress response. So it's no coincidence I've got Daisy here with me because we're going to be talking about things that are resources, and she is just such a wonderful resource. Anyhow, movement, exercise. The stress physiology in our bodies wants to move in some way, except in freeze. And once you come out of freeze, right underneath the surface of freeze is wanting to move. So movement, exercise in ways that feel good or pleasurable to the individual person that are within their own individual tolerance. Some people can run a marathon, and some people can do little arm weights, and some people can do yoga. There's so many different forms of just moving and feeling good if it's within that person's capability. Social engagement. This one is particularly tricky at this time because the proper response to this pandemic that we're having is to isolate. However, it's particularly difficult because one of the main ways that humans regulate ourselves is through interaction with other people. Talking and looking and laughing and hugging each other and spending time together. There's a co-regulation that happens, and as we're isolating in our homes, not having a lot of in-person connection in our communities, no wonder people's fight and flight responses and immobilization, no wonder that's all increasing. So using technology, using social distancing, but writing emails or texts or talking on the phone, just staying connected with people, even through YouTube like this, just seeing each other's faces and hearing each other's voices is really important, especially during times like this. We have to find our way through this new situation we're in, right? Peter Levine and I think Steve Porges talk about the world is not a safe place, and these are the circumstances that we all have to live under. But there's pockets of safety, and those pockets of safety are what enable us to continue going on, right? So finding pockets of safety, whether it's in our home or under a tree or talking to our best friend, or she's certainly a pocket of safety for many of us who know her, sweet little girl here. Just whatever, our nervous systems will tell us when we're feeling safe, because that threat response will start to ease back and we start to feel better, right? So listening within and moving towards what makes us feel safe. Gratitude is a good one. One of the I think the most important things I've learned in my time as a somatic practitioner is what Dr. Levine would say: not getting immersed in the trauma vortex. Don't go in the trauma vortex. And by this, he means not just letting the trauma get so big and so overwhelming and that's all you're looking at, so that it kind of swallows you. It can happen to any of us. So that involves orienting towards things that are pleasant, again, are safe, are pleasurable, non-toxic. And I always joke with my clients, it's a resource if it's non-toxic, it doesn't hurt anybody else, and it's legal, right? Those are resources. Orienting towards resources, as some of our faculty members would say, orienting towards pleasure is super important. Just don't get stuck in this trauma vortex or this state of stress physiology. I think it's generally important for people to make sure that we all have proper guidance, we have trusted elders, we have trusted medical practitioners, spiritual leaders, therapists, neighbors, people that we feel like we can go to and lean on, especially during times like this. Access to medical care. Political issues are beyond the scope of this video, but whatever we can do to make sure that we've got those safe and trusted people in our lives and access to resources. Nature, gardening. It's important to stay safe when we're in nature, not going into places where there might be somebody waiting to assault us, or if we sprain our ankle, we can't get out, like especially during these times when medical response might be slowed down. But if we can find safe ways of going to explore nature, sitting under a tree with social distancing, right? Or getting our hands in the soil, or just watching nature shows on TV. Nature is incredibly regulating. We're a part of nature. It's in every cell in our bodies, and nature is us, and it's in us. And then noticing when these feelings of stress physiology, the speeding up, the clenching of the teeth, the talking fast, the thoughts that just won't slow down, the racing thoughts of what if, noticing when we start to shift out of that and our shoulders soften and our jaw muscles drop and our voice slows and goes down deeper in our chest. Those are generally signs that we're coming out of stress physiology. Again, your results may vary. This video is just a starting place in figuring out what might be going on. So I hope this is helpful. Please feel free to leave comments below. Take exquisite care of yourselves, of your neighbors, of your family, of anybody else that you can during these times. Take good care, and I'll see you here later. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to support my work of getting this information out into the world, you could subscribe to receive notification of future videos. You could contribute to my Patreon account to support this channel. And of course, please feel free to share this video with others. Take care. Until next time, be well.